definitely due to have a big event here. But Robin Schulz, on the other hand, is here to stop him. Robin is, like we said before, he's a prominent figure in the European scene, and he's no slouch. He's definitely going to be a very, very difficult obstacle for Frank to overcome throughout this first round.
He's going to be at a disadvantage at the beginning. He has 2 Zoroark GX in his prize cards. That's not good.
That's Robin?
Yeah.
Oh, jeez.
Frank has 1, so not quite as bad. But, yeah, this is going to be an incredible matchup to start things off. You know, we talked about the metagame a little bit, but these two guys, with all the talk of Buzzwole in the room, both playing Zoroark GX. No fear of the fighting Pokemon.
Here we go. The handshake happens, and we are kicking it off in round 1 of the Pokemon Trading Card Game North American International Championships. Robin Schulz starting off on the left against Frank Diaz. Both of these players choosing to bring the Zoroark decks to, their own versions of the Zoroark decks to this tournament, with a few minor differences throughout their deck list. Notably, obviously, Frank playing Garbodor and Robin not.
Yeah, looks like Robin is going to be going first, and this is a version of the Zoroark deck that I heard a little bit about last night that some players from Europe have brought. You know, we talk about Zoroark GX decks all the time, and you think, well, what are you playing Zoroark with? Is it Golisopod? Is it Lycanroc? Is it Garbodor? Is it even Lucario? There's all these different partners for Zoroark GX, and some players from Europe have said, why do you need a partner? Why don't I just play Zoroark?
Right.
And looks like that's what they're doing. We see just 4/4 Zoroark GX. That is really the only attacker. And a bunch of trainer cards. And we're talking like Team Flare Grunt, Counter Catchers, Enhanced Hammers, all these different things. And couple weakness policy as well. Very interesting.
Yeah, playing less Pokemon and less energy does mean that you get to play more items. More trainers in general. But that is the big deal, right? Like, most of the time you pair the Zoroark to be able to shore up its weaknesses. You pair the Zoroark with, say, a Garbodor, for example, like Frank is, in order to be able to stand a chance against these Buzzwole decks. And Robin, on the other hand, is just choosing to go with a weakness policy as his answer to these decks. And it's a bold choice. Well, bold, but at the same time, kind of an interesting one. And now we do see a Bridget from Robin to bring down these 3 Zoruas and then pass the turn. But then Frank, on the other hand, is starting his own turn with a Bridget of his own.
Yeah, perfect starts for both players so far. Robin, you know, he did signal kind of a weak hand afterwards. He did play the single Puzzle of Time and rearrange his top 3 cards. That's usually a sign you don't have a supporter card for the following turn, or even a Zoroark GX in your hand. So a lot of it's going to depend on what's in those top 3 cards. You know, if he's got nothing playable, this could be a quick game for Frank.
Frank does want to make sure that he sets up himself, though. So not all hopes lost yet for Robin, but definitely it seems like Robin's hand is going to need a lot of help from that Puzzle of Time here.
Yeah, we used to see Frank playing Mysterious Treasure as well. A card you think only shows up in Malamar decks, which have come onto the scene with the release of Forbidden Light. But we're seeing this included in Garbodor decks a lot as well. It's great. I mean, you play Ultra Ball and everything, right? And that's discard 2 cards from your hand, which can be pretty painful. So why not play a card that gets most of your deck, but you only have to discard 1 card? It still gets you Tapu Lele GX, and in this deck gets you Trubbish and Garbodor. So it's a great supplementary card to Ultra Ball.
Any card that can find Tapu Lele GX is A-OK in my book. And now we see Robin immediately evolve into the Zoroark GX and play a double colorless energy onto the Zoroark. So he's definitely got some aggression going.
Ooh, yeah.
Guzma as well is going to be able to start targeting down these Zoruas from Frank. Remember, Frank only found 2 Zoruas from his Bridget, so one of them going down is a big deal, as we're down to just a single Zorua in play for Frank, and he definitely wants to have more than 1 Zoroark in play.
Yeah, that's a strong start from Robin. That's probably the best he could have hoped for, given, you know, he knew what his top 3 cards were. One was Zoroark GX, and he got to trade into the other 2, which weren't very helpful, but he had double colorless and Guzma in hand already, so was able to get a quick knockout, and that's kind of what you need to do in these Zoroark mirror matches. You need to get the jump. Going first is such a big advantage, and being able to take knockouts on your opponent's Zorua is a big deal.
Frank's had no evolution so far, but he's played a Cynthia, finding 6 new cards.
He's got the one Trash Lands Garbodor, but
No Zoroark evolutions. I apologize for not clarifying that.
Yeah, but that's not doing any damage right now. So.
Right. Well, it's doing, well, yeah, I guess none. Good old resistance.
Yeah.
Still no Zoroark GX, by the way. He's going to be forced to attack with just the Tapu Lele, which is, I mean, not ideal, but...
All right, he does get Garbotoxin going, though. Puts the Choice Band on that Garbodor, and that's going to be huge. We do know Robin's hand is not very good, and without access to trade, you might just start to fizzle out here. Frank's deck is very interesting in that it's not a typical Zoroark deck. Most Zoroark decks are just trying to get a bunch of Zoroark GX out, trade a bunch of times, draw a lot of cards, and then use their backup attacker. Frank's deck is more of a Garbodor deck first, with Zoroark as the backup. He's playing a lot of supporter cards and, trying to lock out the opponent with Garbotoxin.
Sort of like a draw engine more than anything, right?
Yeah.
But we do see an Acerola here from Robin. That's going to be his supporter for the turn. Like you said, having access to no abilities right now is really, really hurting Robin right now. And you can definitely see that as he's forced to just kind of Acerola, take away the damage, and just start applying the pressure onto the Tapu Lele from Frank, as that's all he can really muster up. He's only dealing 80 damage as well with Zoroark GX's attack. Definitely not what you want to be doing on these early turns here of your Robin, but...
That being said, I mean, that was still a pretty strong turn. You got the Acerola, heal off some damage. The Enhanced Hammer was really big, discarding Double Colorless off of Tapu Lele GX. Frank doesn't have a supporter of his own. He's going to be in a weird spot, and it looks like all he has is N, and he has to play it.
Oh, no. Okay, so I was going to say, as powerful as that turn was, you have to remember that he only had a 2-card hand after that.
Yeah.
And that was really what was going to affect Robin long term. You can put all this pressure on him in the board, but you're eventually just not going to have any cards. However, Frank's forced to bail him out, as that's his only type of draw supporter for the turn. And remember, he still doesn't have Zoroarks. He still doesn't have anything going for himself. So Frank was forced into this play, and it just benefits Robin so much more.
Yeah, I'm sure Frank, it's a decision you have to face if you play Pokemon in any amount at all. When your opponent has a bad hand and your only supporter is N, you're always faced with that decision. Do I hold on to it, hope I draw a different supporter, or do I just play it and bail my opponent out? Looks like Frank realized every turn I give my opponent just a free attack at my Tapu Lele GX.
Does he really? Wow. Look at his hand. Look at Frank's hand after this end to 6 for himself. It seems like he's got access to Tapu Lele with no abilities. He's forced to just play a Trubbish. He has a couple of energies and a Float Stone.
Sure does.
I guess you can Trash Lanch for 0, 20.
Yeah, I think there's only one item in Robin's discard.
Right, so
the weakness
0.
policy.
So obviously not choosing to do that either. Just kind of just letting the Garbodor take a hit here.
Well, Robin's got another interesting card in his hand. I think we're going to see Delinquent, a card we've been seeing a little bit more of recently. He's going to discard that Stadium and force Frank to discard 3 cards from his hand, and that is very painful when you're that low on resources.
Yeah, he could keep the Field Blower in his hand to... Jeez.
Yeah, this is like a perfect Delinquent from Robin. I think Frank's looking at his hand and he's thinking, I can Field Blower my own Choice Band away to get Tapu Lele GX's Wonder Tag back, and then play the Float Stone afterwards. But with this Delinquent, he's going to have to discard some pieces to that combo, and he's going to have to figure out what he wants to get rid of.
Yeah, so he actually chose to just break down that combo itself and get rid of that Field Blower. He's choosing not to do that, even though that was going to be kind of his only draw power if he chose to keep it. But instead, I think he's just saying, you know what, if I do that, I'm not going to have enough kind of juice to keep this the momentum going on my end, and I'm just going to fall too far behind. I have to kind of hope that the top of my deck is going to help me out here, and I'm just going to get rid of the Field Blower, which is just going to kind of a do-nothing card. And, well, I mean, it helped him out some, right?
How would you like another end?
I mean, in this particular case, I think I would like it a lot. But
it's better than not having one.
Yeah. It's just a very depressing situation. Lucky for him, Robin has not had very much of a damage output yet. Otherwise, this game would be over. But as it stands, it could realistically still be in Frank's hands. He's just got to get some sort of momentum going at this point. I think at this point he can no longer afford a misstep anymore. He can no longer afford to just keep this slow action going. He's got to start dealing some damage. But how? I mean, outside of Zoroark, how do you deal damage with your Garbodor that does 0?
Yeah, well, right now it's doing 40. There are 2 more items in Robin's discard pile, so he can at least get a little bit of damage. But it's certainly not looking good. But the good thing about Frank's deck is it is looking to play a long game. It is looking to, most of the time fall behind a little bit and then make a big comeback with an N late in the game. Garbotoxin plus N is still one of the strongest combos in the game. There's no doubt about it. If you've ever been N to 1 when your opponent has Garbotoxin out, you know the despair that you feel. You can't use your abilities anymore. You're basically relying on one card and then the draw for the turn, and if you draw nothing, your opponent gets a massive window to come back. So even though it looks bad right now, Frank is certainly not out of the game by any means.
Good math. 40 damage from Trash Lynch, and well, at least he's got some damage on the field again for onto Robin's field, and now Robin is the one who plays Parallel City Gym.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to hurt Frank too much. He does get to get rid of that Tapu Lele, which is kind of a favor for him, but it will make him discard his Zorua and limit damage output from his own Zoroark GX. So ultimately, probably still a good play from Robin, but probably not the strongest Parallel City I've ever seen.
Yeah, I mean, but you also have to keep in mind, Frank lost his Zorua in turn 1, and now he's losing a Zorua here from just the Parallel City. That's 2 Zoruas gone. I mean, once again, that is your damage output.
Yeah, and one thing it does do is prevent Frank from playing another Parallel City. So now, since you can't play a stadium card of the same name, Robin kind of has this locked in where Frank can't play his own Parallel City and limit Robin's bench.
Right, he's going to have to find another field blower, even though he's already gotten rid of one, and that's going to be the way that he kind of avoids this lock from the Parallel City, as he's just going to need to get more damage going, and 3 Pokemon on the bench is just not going to be enough. Another Enhance Hammer, by the way.
Yeah, lots of disruption coming from Robin. Even though he hasn't been able to trade very much this game, still finding exactly enough resources to get this going and put the pressure on Frank. And so far, this just does not look good for Frank.
No, it doesn't. And now Frank's looking at Robin's discard pile, really wondering probably exactly what he's playing against. At this point, I think he's figured out that there's no backup Pokemon for Robin here, and instead he's got some backup items, and specifically these Enhanced Hammers have really done damage to Frank throughout this game. And I mean, I hate calling scoop time early on, but there is definitely a chance that might be something you're looking into. Once again, draws are not what you want to have in this tournament, but at the same time, Frank still has a chance to pull this off, and he's going for it with the Sycamore here, drawing 7 new cards. Played a Tapu Lele with a Float Stone before he did so, though. So that is going to be his 3 Pokemon on the bench for now. Does he find a Zoroark? Does he find some way to really apply some pressure back onto Robin? Has a Field Blower.
Yeah, I certainly don't think this game is over by any means. Robin is still at a low hand size. There's still Garbotoxin. Robin has not played a single Field Blower to get his trades back online. So Frank can just keep fighting, keep doing a little bit of damage here and there, and eventually get a Zoroark GX going. There's still an opportunity for him to win this game, but it's going to be an uphill battle.
Yeah, I can respect that outlook. And now an N here from Robin does bring him back up to I believe, 4-card hand?
Yeah. Robin's going to get 4. Frank will get 6. So not the strongest end, but it's better than not having cards to play with. And Frank did not play many cards from his hand, so Robin probably knew that Frank's hand wasn't the best. But, you got to find some way to get more resources into your hand. I think he's really just looking for Field Blower. Once he can get rid of that tool on that Garbotoxin Garbodor, he can start using trade and really building up resources in his hand, and then you'll start to see the real strength of these Zoroark GX decks.
If Robin can ever get to a point where he's got more Field Blowers left than Frank's got ends, then Robin can really start to run away with this game. because every time he field blowers, he'll be able to draw like 6 additional cards, you know? So it's really going to come down to something along those lines, or if Robin can just field blower on the last couple of turns for the last few prizes, that will be how he's going to seal this game up. But in the meantime, Frank is playing for that long game. Like you said, he does have a long-term strategy here, as obviously Trash Lynch is never going to be an attack that's going to win games early on. And Robin, on the other hand, he's just kind of like this mid-range machine where from beginning to end, he's kind of just dealing the same damage output. He's got the same game plan going. He doesn't have any special tricks up his sleeve, at least when it comes to Pokemon. And he's just hoping that these Zoroarks can take him the whole way. And in the meantime, well, and now it seems like Frank is eyeing some options of his own here.
Yeah, Robin, he also decided to retreat. We do see the field blower from Frank as the redundant weakness policy gets discarded from that Tapu Lele GX. Robin decided to retreat his damaged Zoroark GX, just trying to deny Frank from taking prize cards here. Zoroark GX with like 100 HP left, not very intimidating. Zoroark GX with 210, a lot more difficult to knock out. So Robin doing everything in his power to make this game more difficult for Frank to win. But again, anything can happen in these scenarios where it's just, you end your opponent down to a low hand size. One thing you got to worry about if you're Frank is you played a lot of your ends. You do have Puzzle of Time to work with, but you got to set up some power play at some point in the game where you're kind of disrupting your opponent.
Yeah, indeed. At this point, the ends are just going to be so much more crucial. And you see a couple of Puzzle of Times in Frank's hand, definitely going to want to have access to Ennets, well, from here on out.
So still no Zoroark GX for Frank.
Yeah, I'm starting to wonder if he even plays anywhere. He's just, got the Zoras out there for show.
Yeah, but he does have 2 Puzzle of Time in his hand, so we do see N and Double Colorless Energy coming back. So here's going to be this big N play. Robin does have 3 prize cards left, so it's going to be a pretty big N.
Yeah, that's the perfect combination of cards to pick up from that Puzzle of Time. Obviously, you lost a couple of Double Colorless Energies to these Enhanced Hammers. That mitigates some of the damage they dealt there. And, of course, that N is just going to put so much pressure on Robin to continuously keep drawing well. Because, you have to understand, he's got no energy in play. The more I see this game play out, the more I see Frank's game plan is really starting to show here. And it's got a lot to do with Robin not drawing the cards that he needs out of this yet. He hasn't found these field blowers and whatnot. And that's really what it's come down to. And that's why Robin hasn't been able to get, he hasn't been able to blow up on a Frank's field here. But, it's just, once again, another poor hand here for Robin. I'm starting to feel like Frank's starting to turn the tide.
Yeah, this is one of those games where if you're playing from Robin's side, if you're looking at prize cards, you're certainly winning. And for the most part, you're ahead on the board, but you feel this sinking feeling there.
Oh, and huge top deck.
Yeah, that's pretty big. But you have this sinking feeling where if my opponent plays an N and I just drop poorly, I can very easily still lose this game, even though it looks so good from this position. But that top deck Professor Sycamore, that's going to help him.
Yeah, he was looking at a very poor hand here, was Robin, but the top of Robin's deck was so huge for him, as it's going to find him 7 new cards as he discards these 3. But he also has to keep in mind, he doesn't want to necessarily just send these items to the discard. I don't know how much of a choice he's got.
Yeah, the item count is growing. I think we got about 5 or 6 in there right now, so enough to start to be dangerous. And I'm sure Robin has that in mind, but it's not like you're not going to Sycamore here. You have to keep drawing cards. This Zoroark GX is going to go down at some point. You need to find more Double Colorless Energy. You need to find those Puzzle of Time to perhaps even start getting back Double Colorless, because it looks like he only got 1 left in his deck. And you can't just sit there and not play any cards. You have to Sycamore. Sure, it hurts, gives your opponent a bigger Trash Avalanche, but you're going to lose if you don't.
I didn't get a chance to see if he has both field blowers in his deck right now.
Yeah, I didn't get to see that either, but I'm sure they're in there.
Yeah, either there or the 3 prizes.
I can't remember if any were prizes, but there's got to be at least 1 field blower in his deck.
Oh, man. It's early in the morning. We're still shaking the rust off, right? But, yeah, Robin is definitely going to be forced into this play of playing the Sycamore. Rescue Stretcher hitting the discard pile. That's going to be A few item cards in the discard pile. I really wish I had a count of how many, but I'm sure we'll be getting that soon.
So interesting play there. Robin opted not to play the Reverse Valley in his hand, realizing that this really doesn't do anything. And it takes up playing my Stadium for the turn. So he plays the Sycamore, just discards it, and then draws Parallel City. If he had just played Reverse Valley, he wouldn't have been able to make this strong play here. Once again, reducing Frank's bench size.
Yeah, that big-time Parallel City one more time, like you said.
And he does find a Field Blower, but opts not to play it here.
120 damage under the top Lele. He doesn't need the Field Blower at this point in time. He definitely wants to save it in case his opponent has another end. He did not need to have any additional energies or anything like that at this point. But Frank now plays the double colors onto a Zorua. Will we see our first Zoroark of the game finally?
Like he might have another N in his hand. I can't quite see it. But yeah, that's one more N. And he's going to try to find that Zoroark GX. We know he had one in his prize cards, but that's only one of his 3 he plays. So
there we go.
He's putting his eggs in the Zorua basket and hoping he can find that Zoroark GX and get his first riotous beating of the game on turn 27 or whatever we're on.
I believe this is N number 3 after getting the puzzle of time. So I believe he still has 1 N left in the deck, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be very crucial that he finds that N before the game is over, as Robin is sure to draw out of this eventually, given some outrageous circumstances. And now we see 7 item cards in Robin's discard pile. That does give us a much better idea of the damage output that we have available to us with Trash Lanch here on Frank's end. Frank still drawing 6 cards with N. Definitely bittersweet to be able to do that.
Yeah, but I think this is the position you want to be in. You want to be playing N at this point. You've set up your opponent's Pokemon pretty well. There's 2 heavily damaged Zoroark GX, and this is the kind of spot where even though you're still playing N for 6, you don't feel like you're out of the game. If you get a knockout here, then you knock out that other Zoroark GX, and your opponent draws poorly off of their 3 cards, you easily make a comeback, and that's just the power of Garbotoxin. I mean, we've seen this for years now. This same ability and this combination with N has dominated the standard format for how many years now? It just never ceases to be powerful.
Indeed. And now we do see that Zoroark finally hit the field for Frank. Show him to the party, always a little bit late, but better late than never. And now Zoroark does become the active Pokemon. He's going to be able to deal 80 damage right now, but he has a Field Blower, which could potentially let him deal 120.
Yeah, it's still not enough. He'd be 10, not even 10 short. If he had a choice band, he maybe could have gotten there, but yeah, just not enough Pokemon in his hand, not enough resources, decides to hold on to that Field Blower.
Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for playing the Field Blower and just setting up another Zorua to be able to evolve into a Zoroark eventually.
Oops, speaking of Field Blower, Robin is going to play his first Field Blower, and he finally gets to trade.
There we go. Always on time right there. Big time Field Blower here for Robin, and he's going to be able to, wow. He's going to be able to draw quite a few cards now. And that's really what we were talking about, was if the Field Blowers can show up on time here for Robin as the game, comes to, draws to a close, he'll for sure be able to take the last few prizes his deck needs. But in the meantime, it really did come down to him drawing these timely Field Blowers or not. And sure enough, now we're going to get to see the real power of Zoroark.
Oh, that was a huge draw for Robin. So he drew Max Potion off of the first trade, and now it draws his last double colorless energy off of this one. So he's going to be able to completely heal that Zoroark GX and then just attach double colorless, and it's almost like nothing happened.
Jeez.
He's also got Guzma in hand if he wants to go after Tapu Lele GX for those 2 prizes, go down to 1 prize card.
He's actually going after the Garbodor. Going to go down to 2 prize cards.
I actually like this better.
Yeah.
A big mistake people can make is taking prizes too aggressively. Getting N to 1 card is devastating. Getting N to 2 is still bad, but it's not nearly as bad as 1 card. You can still play things like Ultra Ball, and you're surprised how much that 1 extra card makes a difference. So if you're ever in a spot where you can go down to 2 prizes instead of 1, it's usually better to stay at 2. Especially with that GX knockout on board still if he has 1 more Guzma.
Coming down to the wire here as Frank is still at 6 prizes, but I mean, his game plan worked out about as well as it could have, with the exception of...
Yeah, and Frank knows it's over. He's just going to concede the game. He was seeing if he had any Tapu Lele GX left to get one more N, but he knows he can't stop Robin from winning the game. He can't get Garbotoxin, so no use in wasting more time. And Robin Schulz is going to take the first game. It looked... The prize differential made it look worse than it really was. I think Frank was close at points in turning the corner and perhaps winning, but Robin just drawing pretty much exactly enough throughout the entire game to keep the pressure on and take a clean first victory.
Yeah, Robin really showed us how powerful it is to have a field full of Zoroarks.
Yep.
Once you do find that field blower, which is, ideally later on in the game, especially, this was honestly the perfect time to draw it. You got down to a 3-card hand, you found your field blower, you drew 6 additional cards. Those 6 additional cards gave you that Guzma plus that double color synergy, which is exactly what you needed to get rid of that Garbodor for the rest of the game. And now you only needed to find one more knockout while your opponent still had to find 6 prizes. At that point, for sure, that game was over, but it was just so masterfully played by Robin, and the top of his deck was definitely very kind.
Yeah, and the deck choice is just fascinating to me. Heading into the weekend, I think everybody had Buzzwole pegged as the #1 deck heading into this tournament. We kind of have the 3 big decks in the standard format. You have Zoroark variants, you have Malamar variants, and then you have Buzzwole. And I think if you had to ask most people, they would rank Buzzwole at the top. And coming into this tournament...
they'd be wrong.
And coming into this tournament with a pretty much straight Zoroark deck, which is weak to fighting, that takes a lot of guts. But you can see a lot of the trainer cards they've put into this deck have specifically been aimed at Buzzwole. The 2 weakness policy, the card you really never see, but it preys on the fact that most Buzzwole decks just don't play Field Blower. So, hey, if you know your tool's always going to stick... Zoroark not having weakness puts it on even footing against Buzzwole, and then you're drawing way more cards than they are. So I guess it makes sense when you put it like that.
Sort of. It's definitely a bold strategy. I really can't. I can't find a better word than the word bold here. If it works, it works. If it works, you're a genius, and congratulations. But there's just so many other fighting Pokemon that you have to worry about. Buzzwole is not the only fighting Pokemon, and these other decks really do play Field Blower. Plus, not to mention, this is the North American International Championships. People just come up with all these wacky ideas. And I would be very surprised if at least a good percentage of Buzzwole players and Buzzwole decks don't include at least one Field Blower.
And so far, nobody's played Field Blower in their Buzzwole decks, though. That certainly can change at this event. But...
Right, I'm talking about specifically at North America Internationals. Everybody brings out their spicy tech, and I think that could be some spicy tech here going for Buzzwole here. But anyways, Frank Diaz is now going to be starting off the first turn here for Game 2, as he did lose pretty resoundingly to Robin in Game 1. And sure enough, a Bridget on turn 1, always what you want to be seeing, and... once again, we only have 2 Zoroas plus 2 Trubbish to start this game off.
Yeah, this is a much different game than the first one. Frank going first gives him a massive advantage. And Robin started with the worst Pokemon he could start with, Mew EX. A card you only want to play against Buzzwole decks. You can use its versatile ability to copy Zoroark's Ride as Beating and knock out Buzzwole GX in one attack. It only has 120 HP, and it gives up 2 prize cards. It is pretty bad in pretty much every other matchup, and is never the Pokemon you want to start with.
Kind of ironic how the card is pretty bad in every other matchup, but its main ability is called Versatile.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing that out there. But Robin now does get to play a Bridget of his own, hopefully, to match Frank. Because that's really, every Zoroark deck is going to want to have a Bridget on turn 1. That's their dream turn. And sure enough, Bridget on turn 1 here for Robin, finding 3 Zoroas once again.
Yeah,
all going according to plan. There we go.
Don't get me wrong. Mew EX is one of the most powerful cards that exists. It can use any attack. If it ever goes unchecked, have you ever watched a game where someone just had a Mew EX and their opponent didn't do anything about it? It just takes over the game. It uses the best attack every turn.
Sure.
But it only has 120 HP, so it usually doesn't last very long.
Your opponent definitely can't do anything about it. Otherwise, it's not gonna stay on the field for very long.
Yeah. If you're ever fortunate enough to get 2 attacks off with a Mew EX, you feel like you've won the game already.
This seems to be the perfect field for Frank here, and obviously for for Robin outside of the Mew and the active position here. Both players seem to be getting pretty strong starts, but Frank now definitely wants to get these Zoroarks out as early as possible. And now an N here after finding his first Zoroark. Much better start here for Frank.
Yeah, this is huge. Frank already has a full bench, so if he finds double colorless, he can just knock out Mew EX, turn 2, take 2 prizes, take a huge lead, and that's exactly what you need after like a 30-minute game 1, about 30 minutes. You need a quick win in game 2 if you want to have any hopes of winning this match. Because if it goes to game 3 and it doesn't finish, it ends up in a tie. So this is the exact scenario you do want to be in if you're Frank. He needs to find double colorless here.
Yeah, you really want to be aggressive in this game if you're Frank. You really, I mean, obviously when you're playing a deck that has a specific game plan that tends to go long term, then so be it. But if you can by any chance go aggressive, then you're definitely going to try to take it if you're Frank in this specific spot. Because like I've said before, and I'm going to keep saying it throughout the tournament, a draw is going to be very, very difficult to overcome in the early stages of day 1, and neither player wants that.
Frank does Ultra Ball for a second Zoroark GX. It's a smart move. You thin your deck out by 1 card so that when you trade, you have higher odds of finding that double colorless energy. So he'll have 2 trades available. Here comes the first one. Does he find that double colorless?
Not yet. But he does have another one. Just deciding which card to discard. Looks like that Mysterious Treasure might be the card to go. Instead, chooses to draw 2 additional cards. Jeez.
He gets the Garbotoxin Garbodor and a Floatstone, but I don't think his hand is good enough to shut off abilities.
Yeah. So I don't think so either, actually. I think Frank's going to be forced to. Jeez, what do you do if you're Frank?
See what he thinks, though. Does he attach the Floatstone or not?
I mean, you could bank on your opponent spending a lot of resources to kind of like field blower your Floatstone away.
Well, Frank does have an N in his hand, so next turn he can play N and hopefully draw double colorless. But yeah, not the turn he was hoping for. No double colorless energy, so cannot attack with Zoroark GX and has to attach a Psychic Energy and pass.
Okay, well.
Oh, and this is going to be a bad turn for Frank. Here comes Parallel City.
Oh, man. Yeah, well, sure enough, Tapu Lele and Zoro were the 2 Pokemon to go. This is not what I wanted to see if I was Frank. But yeah. Robin here.
The big thing that does is limit his bench size so that Riot is beating can't get to 120 against Mew EX, and it's going to be a pathetic 2-hit knockout on a Mew EX if Frank can't find a way to kick that Parallel City out of play and get some more bench Pokemon.
Robin plays Tapu Lele, obviously can't Wonder Tag because of Garbotoxin, and now he plays an N of his own, drawing 6 cards for both players.
Now, the good news for Frank is he's probably not under any pressure here. Robin did not get an energy attachment on his first turn, so unless he finds a Floatstone and a double colorless energy, there's no way he's attacking. Mew EX cannot use its ability because of Garbotoxin, so there's no pressure coming from Robin's side, and at least Frank can take some solace in the fact that he's not getting attacked this turn.
Sure. A Field Blower, there we go. Field Blower does get rid of his own Garbotoxin. Big time play here as he's going to need to find quite a few resources here, actually. Still no double color, still no energy inside, actually, in his hand after the first trade.
Even a Psychic Energy works here. He's already got the 1 on his active.
Right. Second trade. He did get rid of that Parallel City, too, but he might not want to overextend his bench in case Robin has another one. But, man, still no energy.
Second trade also does not find him the card he needs. Now Frank's got a decision to make. He's got a bunch of N's and a Sycamore Choice Band Puzzle of Time.
I think you play the N here, even though it's the more dangerous play.
I was going to say, Frank, I know Frank. I've known him for a long time. He is a very aggressive player. If I had to bet money, I would say he's playing Sycamore 100% of the time, and he Ultra Balls away 2 N's.
Well, you're definitely right.
I've watched Frank play enough. If he's got a choice between a Sycamore and an N, he is just dumping his hand immediately.
Finds a Tapu Lele with that Ultra Ball.
Yeah. Now, he could potentially find another supporter with Wonder Tag, perhaps go for a Guzma or something like that. But
he's already traded twice, right?
Yeah. Yeah, there's no option for Mallow.
Yeah, he doesn't play Mallow either. Well, yeah.
But yeah, I think it's just going to be Professor Sycamore. Here we go. He's digging for that double colorless.
There we go.
At least some kind of energy card here.
Mine's the double colorless pretty early on in his hand. But now, what other resources is he going to find with it? Because double colorless isn't a good long-term game strategy. And he does play his own Perilous City. Big-time play, actually. Does stop Robin from playing his own. And Riotous Speeding does get rid of the Mew. 2 prizes there going towards Frank. 2 very free prizes, honestly. And that's really why Robin didn't want to start with that Pokemon. It did absolutely nothing besides put him at a big disadvantage.
Yeah. So
Enhanced Hammer, sure enough.
Frank also did get the Choice Band on that Garbotoxin Garbodor, but the counter catcher going to bring out
plus an N. Wow.
Yeah, that's huge. It brings you back to the days of Pokemon catcher with no coin flip. Catcher and N in the same turn. And since Frank had to put Choice Band on the Garbodor instead of Floatstone, it's going to be a potential struggle for him to get it out of there. But if Robin does find double colorless energy and a couple more Pokemon, he can knock out this Garbotoxin Garbodor and get back his abilities.
Yeah, I mean, his bench is full, so he's going to have to find the Guzma, manually. But he does have quite a few options.
Yeah,
Just
we'll see if Robin can find some way to knock out this. Oop, never mind. He does have Field Blower. He could get rid of the Choice Band and start trading, but it's almost weird, right? Then you give your opponent an opportunity to use their trades and perhaps find a Floatstone and just retreat.
Plus, you start powering up Trash Lynch really early on in the game.
Yep.
Really not what you want to be doing. You want to limit Frank's early game aggression as much as you can.
Yeah. And Trash Lynch is interesting against Zoroark decks. For most of the game, it's pretty bad. Psychic resistance, 210 HP on Zoroark GX. Doesn't do a whole lot, but Zoroark decks play a lot of items. And once you get to the very, very late game...
Especially this build, yeah.
Yeah, it's not unusual for Trash Lynch, if you throw a Choice Band on top of it, to be able to knock out a Zoroark GX in one hit at the end. You have 4 Puzzle of Time, you have 4 Ultra Ball, you have your Field Blowers, you have all these other things, Counter Catchers, Max Potions, Evo Soda. There's just a ton of items, and it's not that hard to get to, say, 10 items in your discard. And when you hit that number, Trash Lynch can get there.
Yeah, I think 10 is the magic number if you have a Choice Band, right?
Yeah.
So, good old math helping us out here.
We're at 3 right now.
7 to go.
A Field Blower would make it 4, and then you got to think he'd trade away some items, but Robin just says, you know what, I'm good. But Frank has the Guzma.
Waste no time finding that Guzma.
And an energy.
The double colorless energy to boot deals 100 damage right away onto this, 120 damage, onto the Zoroark.
Yeah, he went to put the extra 10 from Reverse Valley, but that's one of the flip stadiums. Only Robin gets the plus 10 damage. Frank gets the benefit of his metal Pokemon taking 10 less damage.
Which could prove to be...
absolutely useless.
Oh, man. All right, so Robin, with 120 damage on his active Zoroark, is he going to go for the Guzma strategy again onto the Garbodor?
He could. I just don't think that's going to be a winning play, especially against an opponent playing Puzzle of Time. There's no way you're going to strand Garbodor active.
He's at 6 items in the discard now, right?
Looks like 5 discarded Guzma and Puzzle of Time.
Oh, that's a Guzma.
So
these old eyes ain't what they used to be, Kyle.
Yeah, Robin does have a strong turn lined up. He does have Field Blower in hand. He does have an Enhanced Hammer, I believe. So he's going to put a lot of pressure back on Frank. But so far, Diaz is the one in the lead.
Yeah, Robin deciding on which Pokemon to get. Looks like he's going to be choosing a Tapu Lele. Sure enough does. But where does this lead long term? I mean, really,
this is where the real game begins.
Right.
When Robin gets to start trading away, maybe get one of those Max Potions or Acerola, start grinding away. It's a battle of 2-hit knockouts when you're playing Zoroark decks, and it is just beginning.
And keep in mind, there's 11 minutes and 15 seconds left on this clock, and they're still midway through Game 2, if I can even say that.
Yeah, I don't think this game's halfway over.
Yeah. So I'm just It's not looking good for Frank to come out with 3 points, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah, that is almost certainly true. Robin does have Enhanced Hammer. I assume he'll play that immediately. He's going to Wonder Tag first.
Looks like he's just going to go for an Enhanced Hammer supporter play here and then choose to trade afterwards.
I think he's got a Sycamore in hand. He might just be thinning a supporter out of his deck. You know, take a Bridget. Oh, no. Looks like he's eyeing up Delinquent.
I wonder how many cards Frank has in his hand.
Doesn't look like a lot. Delinquent isn't a great play here, though, because Robin doesn't really have anything. He hasn't traded yet, but this could be the case where he's just taking Delinquent out of his deck and saying...
Is it really less important than...
Oh, no, he's going to Delinquent. He's
it looks like he had a 3-card hand, though.
He's going to get rid of Frank's entire hand.
Keep in mind, Frank can literally just trade away whatever he draws here unless it's like a Sycamore.
Yeah, now Robin's going to start trading away. It's already 2. He's going to use the 3rd one and does not find any energy.
Has to play an Enhanced Hammer.
Yikes.
I think that's 7 items now? Six items.
Looks like it. Yeah, that's an interesting choice from Robin. I mean, the Delinquent is clearly powerful. You force Frank to discard his hand, but...
Right away, you see Frank on the outside of the screen immediately just trade away what he drew.
Yeah, exactly. He can just trade a couple times, and if he draws
away a Guzma.
If he draws a supporter, he's fine.
It finds the double colorless energy, though, and he does take 2 more prizes. That brings Frank down to 2 prizes left.
Yeah.
Keep in mind, there's 7 items in Robin's discard pile. So not only does Robin have to take 6 prizes here, but he's also got to do it without getting more items into his discard pile. Otherwise, he's just going to be facing a return KO from a Garbodor. It's just looking very difficult for Robin to pull this game off. And if I'm Robin, I'm scooping right now.
Yeah, I would consider it for sure. You can see some of the logic behind playing the Delinquent there. It actually puts Frank on the defensive where he can't really afford to put a tool on Garbodor anymore. He can't Garbotoxin because he needs his own trade. So in a way, it keeps your abilities online for another turn because you know there's no way Frank is going to put a Float Stone on his Garbodor in that spot. So it's thinking a little bit farther ahead, but I still don't know if it's worth it, you know, getting your Zoroark knocked out. Maybe digging for Max Potion would have been a little stronger there.
I'll tell you, it would have been worth it if Frank hadn't found an energy. But
that's true.
But since he did, obviously, it looks very painful now here for Robin, as things just did not go according to plan for the guy. And now Frank's down to 2 prizes. I mean, honestly, another prize is not that difficult to take here. Tapu Lele's just very easy to knock out. At least it will be pretty soon. Actually, it is now, actually.
So Robin's going to play the end here. This could be a somewhat long-term strategy for Robin. I didn't get a good look at everything in Frank's discard pile, but maybe Robin has noted there's a lot of energy in here. And if Frank has had to burn through too many Puzzle of Time already, you know, he did play a big Sycamore. He actually just traded away a Puzzle of Time there. If Frank is running out of resources, Robin could win the game with some of his energy disruption cards like Enhanced Hammer. He's got Team Flare Grunt, and he might be looking at it and saying, you know what, I can win the game just by running Frank out of energy.
We'll have to see. Obviously, we don't have perfect information right now. We don't know exactly how many, for example, Psychic Energies Frank's got left in the deck, but I'd have to imagine that it's probably around 3.
Maybe. There's 2 in play. He had to discard 1 early. So I think there's maybe 1 or 2 left for him. Not a lot.
Right. How many double colors did we see in the discard? 2, right?
I think so, yeah. The 3rd one's in play.
So there's 1 of those left, too. Probably a couple of Puzzle of Times left somewhere in the deck.
Yeah, the problem is if you lose this game, it's almost certainly a tie. So I'm on your side. I think I would concede in this spot. There's no way to know if, 9 minutes was enough to finish a 3rd game, but it's better than 2 minutes.
Some would accuse us of having no heart, but I like to think with my brain and not with my heart. And in this particular spot, it's just going to be very difficult for them to finish a game 3. Even if he were to scoop in this very second, it would be very difficult to finish it. So from here on out, I'm definitely going to be hoping that Robin, if Robin can pull this game off, he shows us a master class of what it's like to play a late game against a deck that's designed to go to the late game.
Ooh, talking about late game, how about some resource management coming up? Got that Oranguru coming out. And looks like Robin does have a counter catcher in hand as well. So I think at this point, Robin might realize he probably isn't going to win a full game. But if he can simply last until time runs out, it's effectively a win, right? He won the first game, so if the second game doesn't finish, he wins the match. So he's going to do everything he can to make sure Frank doesn't win. And here we go, resource management. It's actually pretty effective against Trashalanche. Put 3 items back into your deck, and now we're going to see that item count go from 8 to 5. And Frank's going to need a Psychic Energy plus a Field Blower if he even wants to get a knockout on this Oranguru, otherwise it won't be enough.
Yeah, it actually says put 3 cards back into your deck, but in this particular case, it really might as well say put 3 items. It's definitely going to be doing that no matter what.
Yeah.
Of course, Field Blower, a couple puzzle, a puzzle time and an Enhanced Hammer. Perfect choices here for Robin. And yeah, he's going to be going down to only 5 items in the discard pile. It's going to be difficult for him to knock out this Oranguru, but beyond that, it's going to be, wow. Well, maybe it won't be difficult for him to knock out the Oranguru.
And Frank does find a float stone, so he goes down to 1 prize. Can Robin somehow find a way to win or maybe not lose this game?
4.5 minutes remaining. Robin thinking, how do I not lose? I mean, ideally, how do I win later on? You know, in like, let's say 5 turns from now, I'll wonder about that. I'll wonder how to win. But for now, how do I just stop my opponent from doing so much damage to me?
Doesn't look good.
Yeah, it looks like 5 items in the discard still. Look at all
5 items in hand.
Exactly. Look at all the items in his hand. He's forced to just discard them. He has no real choice here. So back up to 6. Oh, actually, it looks like 7 now. So all that resource management that Oranguru did was just kind of there to help him not get 1-hit KO'd after this turn's going to be over. If he can even do that. I don't even think he can do that.
We did see another Enhanced Hammer discarding the double colorless off of Zorak GX. So the current state of this board, Frank can't attack or retreat with the Zorak GX. So not looking terrible.
He has double colorless in his hand, though.
Yeah, that helps.
That actually is more than likely going to be the final double colorless in his entire in this entire game, unless he can double puzzle a time.
Oh, if Frank finds a choice band here, he can win with 7 items in the discard. Guzma and choice band, he can knock out that Tapu Lele GX on the bench. So he traded digging for it, but I don't think he found the card he needed.
You might not want to overextend that. Oh, man. That's rough.
Well, that's great because now Enhanced Hammer can't discard the energy off that Zorak GX. And Robin is in a bit of a pickle here. I don't know what he can really do to make it through another couple turns. He does have Mallow, so if there are any 2 cards in his deck that can help, he can find them, but...
Like, keep in mind, yeah, I mean, I guess you can't play everything exactly, but if you can max potion away the damage from the Zorak and knock out the Garbodor on the bench, that's it for the Psychic Energies from Frank's deck. Obviously, it's difficult for Robin to know that, but if he can pull this off, then he won't have to worry about Trashalanche for the rest of the game.
Yeah, he just doesn't have enough in his hand. It's got a bunch of items, most of which don't do anything. He's got like 3 Ultra Ball. I'm not really sure what he can even do here. I mean, even if you knock out that Trashalanche Garbodor on the bench, Frank has Zorak GX still powered up. I mean, can you avoid that forever?
Well, you can try. All you need to do is avoid it for 3 turns, right?
Guess so. Looks like Robin's going for a puzzle of time for sure off the Mallow and deciding what the other card should be. I gotta think he's gonna go for another counter catcher play. Maybe bring out the Garbodor, the Garbotoxin one. Try to stall this out as long as he can. But we do know Frank has Guzma in hand, so I don't think that's gonna work out for him. He's trying to find any combination that could do anything. Because I don't even think he could knock out the Trashlange Garbodor. He just doesn't have enough Pokemon either. So even if he did find like Counter Catcher or Double Colorless Energy, he's only doing 60 damage. He just can't do enough here to make a comeback here. But I've been wrong many times before, and if anybody's going to figure it out, it's going to be Robin. We'll see what he comes up with.
Less than a minute to go in the clock, too. So, really, this game's really coming down to the wire, and there is a chance that he can force his opponent into a position where he can't take the final prize, but I'm just not seeing it right now. Frank's hand is stacked. Robin, honestly, just running out of options here. Plays double puzzle at a time. I wonder what he's going to go for. Might have to be like an N.
He's already played a supporter.
Yeah, well, geez.
2 counter catchers. And Robin has successfully whittled down the clock. So we are going to go into extra turns here. And he's going to counter catcher. Got to imagine that Garbotoxin Garbodor. And just hope that Frank doesn't have a way to get that Garbodor out of there. But, you know, in the first extra turn of time, I think he's going to get the bad news.
All right, turn 1.
And Frank is just going to do the math. See how many item cards are in his opponent's discard pile.
Yeah, double check the discard pile.
If he's got...
Triple check it probably.
Yeah, if Frank has Guzma in hand, he wins.
Which I believe he does, right?
I think so.
I
Could be wrong.
I thought I saw it, but...
I would think he would have played it by now.
Yeah. Well, this could be a little bit more exciting than...
Oh, no, he doesn't.
Yeah, wow. Could be more exciting than we gave it credit for. He's forced to trade. Does he find the Guzma yet?
No.
Stop spoiling it for me, Kyle.
Look, if he had it, he would have played it immediately. Wow, that makes this...
He has one more trade available to him, right?
I think so, but I think he's trying to figure out, is the last card in my deck a Guzma? You know, it could be his last prize.
Oh, man. Could it really be?
Oh, that's it, though. There's 10 items in Robin's discard pile.
Oh, there is 10
see the choice
items.
band, Trashalanche for exactly 210 damage. And no, Frank didn't have any Guzma left.
Wow. Well, that was definitely not the way I expected this final turn to go, but at the same time, we got the result we expected out of this game, which was a Frank Diaz victory. Really, Robin cruised through game 1. Frank cruised through game 2. And it's a shame that we're not going to get to see a game 3 here, but both of these decks really showing the power of Zoroark.
Oh, absolutely. Zoroark GX was dominant for months in the standard format, even the expanded format. It was just one of the most powerful cards to ever exist. Trade is just an absurdly strong ability. You know, drawing cards is always good. Drawing 10 cards a turn is good.
10 cards a turn.
Sometimes that's what it feels like. But, yeah, we've seen this strange ebb and flow in the standard format where for a long time it was Zoroark dominating to the point where people were just playing Buzzwole over and over and over.